At 11:32 a.m., the door of Mel's diner swung open with a soft chime. The regulars didn't even glance up. The smell of coffee and bacon was thick in the air, and the low murmur of conversations filled the room. A frail, stooped man in a windbreaker walked in, holding a cane in one hand and wearing a navy blue cap with the words, "Use Nef Vietnam veteran," embroidered in faded gold thread. He moved slowly, but with dignity, finding his usual corner booth. A waitress named Carla gave him a warm nod. "Morning, Mr. Peterson," she said, topping off his coffee without asking. He smiled back, his pale blue eyes still alert despite his age. Harold Peterson, 78 years old, had been coming to Mel's for almost a decade, ever since his wife passed. He didn't talk much about his service unless someone asked, but the cap spoke for itself. At 11:47 a.m., the quiet rhythm of the diner was broken. A loud grumbling engine echoed outside before a large figure filled the doorway. The man was easily over 6 feet tall, bulky, and wore a leather vest with patches that had skulls, flags, and the word Reapers. Tattoos snaked down his arms, and his long black beard was streaked with gray. He sauntered in with a swagger, his boots thudding against the tiled floor. He didn't go unnoticed. Walking past Harold's booth, the biker paused, smirking at the cap. "Hey, Gramps," he said loud enough for several heads to turn. "Still pretending you did something important back in the day?" Harold looked up slowly, saying nothing at first. He studied the man for a moment. The biker laughed. "You guys act like wearing that hat makes you special. All you did was take orders." Carla froze behind the counter, unsure whether to step in. Other patrons exchanged glances. Some looked down at their food. One man shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Harold didn't rise to the bait. "Enjoy your lunch," he said quietly, returning his eyes to his coffee. The biker chuckled mockingly and found a seat a few tables away. Minutes later, the bell above the door rang again. In stepped a young man, early 30s, wearing the dress uniform of a United States Marine. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. Medals were pinned to his chest, and his posture was as sharp as his haircut. He scanned the room briefly before walking toward Harold. "Sir," the Marine said, stopping at his table. "May I sit?" Harold looked up, surprised, then smiled faintly. "Of course." The Marine sat, eyes fixed respectfully on the older man. "Your Navy?" "Yes." Harold nodded. "Vietnam, 1967 to 1971. The Marine reached into his pocket and placed a silver coin on the table, a challenge coin. "On behalf of my generation, thank you." Their brief moment of mutual respect was interrupted. "Oh, God," the biker scoffed, shaking his head from a few tables away. "Now we've got two of you. What's next? A group therapy circle?" The Marine turned his head slowly. "Excuse me?" The biker leaned back in his chair. "You heard me. You military types always act like the world owes you something." The Marine stood, calmly, deliberately. "You may not understand what that hat represents, but that man over there risked his life, so people like you can sit here, running your mouth." The diner went quiet. Even Carla stopped mid-pour, her coffee pot hovering over a mug. The biker stood, now towering over most in the room. "You going to make me leave, soldier boy?" The Marine didn't flinch. "I don't need to. You're already embarrassing yourself." Tension cracked in the air like static. A man from a nearby table stood up. "That veteran helped save my brother's life in Nam," he said. "He doesn't talk about it, but I remember." Another voice, a woman near the counter. "My son's in Afghanistan. I'd be proud if he turned out half as strong as either of you." The biker looked around. The room had turned against him. The Marine stepped aside and motioned toward the door. "You're free to go." For a long beat, the biker said nothing. Then, with a grunt, he shoved in his chair and stomped out the door. Silence followed, then applause. Harold looked slightly overwhelmed, his hands trembling slightly as he held his coffee. The Marine said again, "I'm Captain James Ritter. My grandfather served in Korea. He wore a hat just like yours." Harold smiled. "You're a credit to your uniform, Captain?" A week later, Harold came into the diner as usual. Same cap, same seat. But this time, the biker was already there, alone. He stood when Harold approached. Hey, double quotes, he muttered. Look, I was a jerk. Harold regarded him silently. My dad was Army, the biker continued. Never came back from Desert Storm, I guess. I never knew how to deal with it. Harold finally nodded and gestured toward the seat across from him. They talked for nearly an hour. Carla watched from behind the counter, amazed. Redemption doesn't always come easily. But sometimes all it takes is someone in uniform walking through the door and someone else willing to listen.